Hi, everybody. This is Victoria Longo with today's Friday at 5. I know that usually I do these videos live, and today's has been pre-recorded, but I did want to make sure to get a topic out to you because I had a request come in for my thoughts on a situation that tied into relationships. So I thought what better place to share my thoughts than here with you all. So I'm going to read to you what was sent to me, and then I'm going to go into why, what I believe about it. So what I received was a blurb, and it says, "I'm slowly learning that even if I react, it won't change anything. It won't make people suddenly love or respect me. It won't magically change their minds. Sometimes it's better to just let things be, let people go, don't fight for closure, don't ask for explanations, don't chase answers, and don't expect people to understand where you're coming from. I'm slowly learning that life is better lived when you don't center it on what's happening around you and center it on what's happening inside you instead. Work on yourself and inner peace." I am 1,000% for this, and there's a lot of reasons why, so I'm going to break it down for you in today's video. Reacting isn't going to change anything. Reacting to something is basically there was an expectation or assumption that we had that another person was supposed to fill into, and they didn't. So we're left hurt, we're left upset over the fact that we didn't get what we wanted. And so we're trying to take it out on the other person to get them to see our way and give us our way, right? At least that's the way that I've always interacted with people when I've reacted. It's because I had expectation for them, said or unsaid, and majority of the time they were unsaid expectations. Expectations that I formed in my head and never expressed, never asked if they would be willing to do that, and just assumed that because they were with me, they were going to go along with what was in my head. Okay, so I think a lot of people do that in both parties, right? And it takes two people to have a relationship. So you have two people coming together, and both people have different viewpoints, different assumptions, and different expectations about the other, assuming that this other person is going to meet them. Now, if you're married, it's a lot worse, I think, because you're assuming that because you married this person, there's now an obligation to do what you want and an obligation to give you what you want. Rather than just an assumption and an expectation, it now becomes something that they must do. And even if you're not married, but you've been in a relationship for a really long time, that obligation mentality can stick. And I don't know that anybody actually recognizes this. I think it's just we mirror what we see. And we see a lot of relationships where this comes into play, where, one party is, well, I said it's this way, or I'm going to generalize here and stereotype because it's so much of it. Happy life, happy wife, or happy wife, happy life. She's right. She's always right. And it's not fucking true, first of all, because I know personally there's been so many times I've been wrong, but because I wanted to have my way, of course I was right? Even if I was being a total bitch and being so manipulative, I was right in my beliefs and that they should go along with it. So, reacting is usually reacting to unmet expectations, assumptions about unmet expectations. So when you react, it's not going to change anything, except probably make things worse, because now when you react to somebody, you are, they're going to respond, right? I don't know many people, unless they've gone through this so many times in their life that they just are numb to it. But there's not many people that are going to stand there and take a beratement and stand there and just be yelled at and not do anything about it. Most people are going to have something to say. They're going to react, they're going to respond, they're going to defend their own point of view, which is probably not what you want. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be in this conflict anyway. So it's not going to change anything. It's just hurt feelings are going to happen. Anger is going to cause things to be said that can't be unsaid, that are going to stick. So reacting doesn't solve anything. And no, it doesn't make people suddenly love and respect you. Sometimes it does the opposite, where they see a side of you that maybe they didn't before, or they see an action like anger taking over and name calling and insulting that makes them lose respect for you. So no, it's not going to make people suddenly love and respect you, nor will it magically change their minds, right? It's not like you're going to react and be like, well, you should have done this and you knew this all along and da 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 da. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I'm so sorry. No, that's a fantasy. That's never going to happen. So, the second line, where sometimes it's better to just let things be, let people go, don't fight for closure, don't ask for explanations, don't chase answers, and don't expect people to understand where you're coming from. 100%, 1000%. Why? Because people can only understand where they are. They can only understand where they're functioning from, okay? So if you're in a relationship with somebody who's never had the experiences that you've had, they're not going to be able to relate. And some people are better at relating to people than others. Like, I'm an empath. I'm highly sensitive. I can definitely tap in. And I've also had a fuck ton of life experiences that I can relate to a lot of different things. But I sometimes don't fully understand where they're coming from either, even though I'm able to relate. So somebody who's maybe not highly sensitive or not an empath might not be able to even comprehend this. And a lot of people tend to forget that there are two people having a relationship. It's not the relationship, right? The relationship is not the most important thing. It's the two people that make it up. So, when people get into a relationship, it's like they lose themselves in favor of the relationship. They lose their interests, their desires. They make the relationship paramount. They make, what their partner's wants and needs paramount to theirs, and let themselves go. And there's a lot of unhappiness that gets created there. And that's for another video. But, when you let things go, the way I look at closure is you wanting to get something that you didn't have, right? You want an answer. You want to understand, except you've already decided how a situation is because of how it played out. So, for you to chase for closure, and I used to be a huge one, like, I can't let this go until I talk to him, until I figure it out and understand why he did what he did. But when I met and I talked to him, I didn't try to understand. I didn't care. I was hurt. I was upset that he hurt me. And so my closure was basically me lashing out at him so I could get the final word, right? And that's not closure at all, because now I'm just dumping my shit all over another human being to take with them, whether they deserve it or not. He acted the way he needed to. Because he's a person, and obviously there was something that was wrong in the relationship, and I knew it. I knew it, and I stuck into it because the relationship was more important than either one of us, and we couldn't let that go, right? I couldn't fail at that. So, the closure piece came in not because I was really trying, and I think this comes into play with a lot of people. They're not really trying to understand where the other person's coming from. Now, there might be some exceptions. Somebody might be honestly curious what drove somebody to act the way they did, if it was out of character. But what I found is a majority of the time, no, people aren't seeking closure to understand. They're seeking closure to get the final say. They're seeking closure, and they don't actually get what they're seeking when they get together. What they get is either hurt feelings because the closure didn't turn out the way they want it to in their head. They didn't get the answers that they wanted. And sometimes that could be because we've already decided what those answers are. And if you watched my video from last week, I brought this up because there was a woman who asked a question of a man, and he answered her, and she said, no, that's not what it is, right? So she asked again, and he answered again. And again, she didn't hear him. She didn't hear that what his answer was, because it wasn't what she had already decided about him to be true. So, it's if we're in that space where we've already decided something, we're not going to be able to hear what the other person says. So we're not going to be able to get the closure that, we're looking for, and things aren't going to turn out the way that we want. So we are going to be left feeling like crap. And not only that, we're going to leave somebody else feeling like crap, which maybe we don't care about because they hurt us. So what goes around comes around, right? Karma. And we're going to be the karma police, and we're going to take care of it. We're not God. I'm sure, people are suffering whether we see it or not. And that's the thing. We don't see all the pieces. We don't have access to it. We only have access to our point of view, which is so narrow and so limited to us. And so that's why, going on this last sentence of work on yourself and your inner peace, 100,000%, because that's the only place that we can find happiness. That's the only place where things aren't going to affect us, because we're no longer looking to the external. We're looking to the internal, right? So somebody can come up and, let's say I'm in a relationship, right? And he decides that he wants to, be with somebody else. So he does, and he doesn't tell me. And I find out. Am I going to take it out on him? No. He made a choice. I don't agree with that choice, so I can walk away, right? He did something that I do not care for. I'm not going to change him by cursing him out or creating, arguments. I need to do what's best for me. And so what would be best for me would probably be to walk away. There's the way I look at it is I walk away with my inner peace. I don't have the drama. I don't have the stress. I don't need to make him, see how wrong he was to do this. There's somebody, if he did, if somebody I was with did that to me, there's somebody out there who's going to treat me the way I want to be treated. And very clearly, it's not him. Now, I have noticed in the past that sometimes I've ignored signs, right? And things escalated and they got bigger and bigger. And it wasn't that, he was a bad person. It was just that he wasn't what I wanted for a partner. I knew it, but the relationship was more important than either one of us. So I ignored all those signs until they escalated to a point that I couldn't. And they escalated to a situation maybe like cheating, where I really have to make a decision. And again, I don't look at it as I was being punished. I don't look at it as him being a bad person. I look at it as I knew that he wasn't what I wanted, but I ignored it. And so it had to get big enough that I actually did something about it. Because the other aspect is I was in my comfort zone, right? I was comfortable with him. I was comfortable with the relationship. And even though I wasn't happy, I wasn't alone, right? Because I did go into that, like, well, it's better than being alone. It could always be worse, right? So I assumed that it would be worse without him. I knew what I was dealing with, so I might as well just stay. So all of these thoughts that I talked myself into the relationship, rather than just being with him because it felt good and because it was, enjoyable to be together. It was like, well, this isn't a match, but, it's better than being alone. And so, now that I've switched that around, if, things escalate to a point where something like that happens, I get to make a choice. And maybe I've ignored it. I think I'm a bit more aware now that I've tapped into my intuition that I don't think I'll have to let things get to that point. I think I'll be aware enough to say, you know what, this isn't working. And actually I have done that where I walked away because I said, this isn't working. This isn't what I want. And so I need to find something that is, right? So I have gotten much better at working that muscle, but most of us aren't trained to do that. Most of us are just trained to the relationship piece, right? So, going back to the sentence prior where it says, I'm slowly learning that life is better lived when you don't center it on what's happening around you and centering it on what's happening inside of you. Yes, again, 1,000%, because if I'm constantly in reaction to everything that's happening around me, I can't control anything anyway, right? None of us can because we're not God. But when we have mastery of ourselves, those things that go on outside of us, we're no longer in reaction to a situation. We're actually able to create situations. And if we are creating situations, why would we create a situation where we have somebody who is abusing us? And it doesn't have to be physical abuse. It could just be, they say they're going to show up and they don't. They say they're going to call and they don't. They say they're going to, be there and then they're not. And we're constantly chasing them. If we are centered on ourselves, we wouldn't even tolerate that, because we know that it doesn't make us feel good, because we know that it just leads to drama and stress. So why not say goodbye to that and find somebody who is going to call when they say they're going to call, who is going to show up, who is going to be there for us. So then that eliminates, because then again, we're creating that experience that we want versus reacting to something that we don't want. So, when it comes to closure, when it comes to explanations, when it comes to answers, I don't have time to waste in that anymore. And the reason I don't have time is because, again, going back, we might not like the answers that we're given, and we might want to keep pushing for something more. And there might not be anything more from the other person, because again, we don't know their experience. We don't know how, their past shaped them. We might know instances that happened throughout their past, but we don't know what beliefs they actually formed from them and what their thought process is, because we're not in their heads. So, for us to push for answers, for us to push for, to fight to hang on to something we don't want, it's just a lot of energy that's wasted and a lot of effort, in my opinion, that's wasted. So, chasing for answers, chasing for closures, I just think is a total waste of our time. And when it could be better spent, again, instead of reacting to what's going on, actually creating what we want to go on. And this might take a little bit of time to get things to match up, because if we've spent most of our lives in reaction, and most of us are taught to live that way. Most of us are taught that we don't have control of, or we're not even taught that we do have control. Most of us are just taught, like, this is what happens and you have to deal with it, right? And use your head to figure it out. And so there's all this stuff that is put on us from a young age onto how to live this reality. And what I found out is that we actually, when we're creating this reality that we want, we don't have to react to anything. We don't have to figure it out. When we trust our intuition, when we trust that inner voice, that inner knowing, rely on our heart, and we've been bastardized to not trust our heart. We got to go with our head. But our head is what usually gets us in trouble. Our head is the one that usually we're following that voice because it's louder, because it's obnoxious, because it's a constant stream of narration. At least mine is. So we're always following that versus, our knowing. It's like we know somebody's not good. We know there's something off, but our head, the voice in our head is going to be like, well, you shouldn't judge people. You shouldn't criticize, or maybe they're not so bad. Look, they did this, so they're not a bad person. So we allow ourselves to go down this road because we're following our head, and then we get burned, but now we're the victim. We're not responsible for what happened. We're not responsible for the fact that, they took advantage of us, even though our intuition had said, hey, something's wrong. We allowed our head to override that. And sometimes people don't even realize that they did that because they're so numbed out to their intuition, to their inner voice, to what's going on inside, because we're taught that it's a joke. We're taught that, our head is our minds are our most valuable, asset, and that, we've got to think things through. And anybody that, is airy-fairy is a joke. And it's so the opposite. And, I just wonder if we all tapped into that power that we do have, because every single one of us has it. And that's why I say, I believe everybody's psychic. I believe everybody is born with this. Everybody has, I think it's either as many or more neurotransmitters, which are the are in our brain, in our gut, right? So in it, where our, I guess, intuition or inner voice could be. But we're given a lot of things. We're given a lot of chemicals. We're given a lot of drugs. We're given a lot of things to shut that part down. So we do rely on our head, but our heads get into these ruts that aren't helpful, that are actually hurtful to us. So maybe we are numbed out to what our intuition is saying. Maybe we are numbed out to, what that inner voice is telling us. But a lot of times I see, and I saw it not that long ago, where somebody had met a guy and she really liked him, like really was excited about him, and he asked her to do something. And she called me. This is how she knew it was off, because she called for my opinion. She wanted me to check in because it didn't sound right. And when she told me, I agreed that it didn't sound right. I told her that I didn't think she should do it, but she really liked him. So she did it. And she got in big trouble. She got into big trouble. I don't even know if she remembers that she called. I don't know that if she remembers that the minute he first brought it up, there was this moment of hesitation to make her question it. But at this moment in time, or at least the last moment in time that I spoke with her, she was 100% the victim. She didn't know why somebody would take advantage of her that way, why somebody she really, he was really a nice guy, and why he could do this to her. So it's all about somebody outside doing something to her versus acknowledging that there was a question there, a doubt there that popped up and was ignored. So, when we take this stance, then we won't be victims to what life throws at us. We won't be victims to other people, because we are fully responsible for what we're creating, again, instead of reacting. So I think this post that was shared with me is just, it's beautifully said, because the reacting, the answers, the closure, that is all external. And again, it's not going to resonate with us if we're not in a space that we can hear it, or it's not what we want to hear, or not what we think we should hear, or not what we think the answer should be. If we've already decided they did this because of some other reason, then whatever they tell us isn't going to land on our end. It's always going to be something else. So I do think it's worthwhile to spend the time just letting stuff go. Like, stop obsessing, stop. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change people. And start focusing on who can give us what we want, who can, sorry, my lighting is doing something really funky right now. And I have the light on, so I don't think it's the light. I actually think maybe it's my phone or something. Anyway, so I lost my train of thought. So let's see. So spending the time within to actually, if somebody's not giving us what we want, we might not be able to believe them and accept their explanation for things. So just letting that go and focusing on, okay, who can give us what we want? Who can be there? Who is going to show up? It's going to make life way more peaceful, way less drama, and way more fun, right? Because you don't have to stress about that stuff anymore. You can just let it go, like the song, right? From Frozen, I think it was. Sorry, don't have kids, don't really watch Disney movies anymore. So, let it go. And with that, I'm going to finish up today's Friday at 5. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can get the updates. And you can find me on Facebook as well and Instagram. And also, if you are interested in, working through your own personal relationships one-on-one, contact me, because I do have a few spots left for my new program, Relationships Reimagined, where we work on exactly this stuff of clearing out what doesn't work so that we can create something that does. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to talking with you next time.